Good evening and welcome to the Stephen Leeson Show, brought to you live from the Scientology Community Centre here in Dublin. And Angel's here with me, Cars.
I have to say, I'm delighted to have Charlie McGettigan here. I mean, he's my pal. We always meet at these events and get together, so it's great. I'm delighted. Can't wait.
100%. Folks, tonight, as Angel says, we're delighted to welcome Charlie to the show. Charlie started his musical career in the 1960s in a number of Donegal rock bands. Moving to Dublin in 1968, he became part of the thriving folk music scene, and in 1973 formed the highly successful band Jargon. Jargon won the prestigious Letterkenny Folk Festival, following in the footsteps of bands like Clannad and Pumpkinhead. Charlie's songs have been recorded by many artists, including Danann, Mary and Francis Black and Hal Ketchum. That's to name but a few. He's also written a book, Forever a Rock and Roll Kid, published and released in September of this year. Folks, will you please welcome Charlie McGettigan.
Hello. It's lovely to be here. I've been watching a lot of these programs on YouTube, and it's a really nice place to be. I have no idea what a lovely venue it is here as well. So thanks to whoever booked me. Thanks for having me. We're going to open up with a song about marriage. Somebody said one time that marriage is like a really good meal with the dessert at the beginning. Other people say that married people live longer. Somebody else will say it only seems longer. But I have to tell you, I've been married now for 50 years to the same person. And there have been lots of desserts. As a matter of fact, there's been a dessert every day of my life. Now, life hasn't been perfect, been ups and downs, but this song sort of says about not trying too hard to achieve perfection, and maybe accept a little bit of imperfection. Keep changing like the weather. One day good, the next day better. I never know how you're gonna be. That's how it is with you and me. One day hot, the next day colder. Keep looking over my shoulder. Sometimes you're really hard to see. That's how it is with you and me. That's how it is with you and me. We live our lives imperfectly, and though you're really hard to see, that's how it is with you and me. That's how it is with you and me. We live our lives imperfectly, and though I love you totally, that's how it is with you and me. Every day a different color, no one day like the other. A different song in a different key. That's how it is with you and me. Yeah, a song about imperfection, but perfection in its own way. I'm going to sing you a song now. I'm a big fan of Facebook, and people say it's not cool to like Facebook. It has to be TikTok or Instagram. But I've made more friends on Facebook than you'd care to mention. And I'm always seeing, you know, it's not just people putting up pictures of their dinner and things like that, but it's one particular day I was on Facebook, and the words of a poem came up. And the poem was called Dust If You Must. And it was about, okay, go and dust if you must and do all those menial tasks, mow the lawn or whatever it is, but you don't have to. you can really spend your life doing the things you really enjoy rather than doing the mundane tasks. Anyway, I saw the lyric and I said to myself, God, that's just crying out for a melody. And within 10 minutes, I had a melody for the song. But I didn't know who had written the song. So I put up a little notice on Facebook. Does anybody know who wrote this poem, Just If You Must? And 3 weeks went by before somebody came along and they said, yeah, I know who wrote this song. It was a lady called Rose Milligan, who lives in Lancashire in England. And I have her phone number and I have her address if you want it, because I really liked the song. So I rang up anyway, and this frail old lady answered the phone. She was 86 years of age, and I said, I've been looking at your poem and I've put some music to it. And she said, oh, you can't do that, you know. And I said, oh yeah, I've made a song out of it. I don't know, nobody ever made a song out of one of my poems. So I said, can I send it to you? And I said, I'll email it to you. I don't do any of that stuff, she said. And I said, well, I'll send it by CD. And I sent it off. And I spent about 10 days biting my nails, wondering, did she like it or did she not? And it turns out, I called her and she said, I really love it. I really love it. And so I felt free then, and I made a record of the song. Put it on my Tuesdays with Paul album. You can find it. And anyway, the song is, what else would it be called but Dust If You Must Go? Dust if you must, but wouldn't it be better to paint a picture or write a letter, make a cake or plant a seed, ponder on the difference if want and need. Oh, dust if you must, yeah, dust till you bust, but always trust your wanderlust. Yeah, dust if you must, but there's not much time, with rivers to swim and mountains to climb, places to go and books to read, friends to find, a shine of life to lead. Oh, dust if you must, dust till you buzz, but always trust your wanderlust. Dust if you must, but there's a world out there with the sun in your eyes and the wind in your hair, shower of rain or but you spring. These days you know any old thing. So dust if you must, dust till you buzz, but always trust your wanderlust. Let those good times always find you. Leave those broken times far behind you. Oh, dust if you must, but bear in mind, old age will come and it's not kind. And when you go, and go you must, you yourself will make a lot more dust. Oh, dust if you must, dust till you bust, but always trust your wanderlust. Just if you must. Yeah, a great song and a great lyric, of course, by the great Rose Milligan from Lancashire in England. Well, I've been involved in music for a long time. I'm just going to take a drink here. I've been involved in music for a long time, way back, goes back to the 1960s. I was a rock and roll singer. I played on electric guitar. And, but eventually I ended up in a place down in County Leitrim called Drumshanbo. I went there for what I thought would be a 6-month little sojourn there. But here I am 50 years later, and I'm still living there because it's a place full of music, stories, and all kinds of things. So just recently I wrote this song especially for Drumshanbo. Goes it. If ever I'm down Leitrim way, spend a little time in a hidden jewel of old Ireland's crown. Just a few miles out of Carrick, it's a spot that's just divine. A a little place they called Drumshambo Town. At the foot of Slieve and Erin, down beside Loch Allen shore, where the Shannon River flows from higher ground. It nestles 'neath the Rigna, where the miners mine no more, a little place they call Drumshambo Town. And even when I'm far away, it's always in my mind that one day I'll return and settle down in that little piece of heaven where my dreams are all enshrined, a little place they call Drumshambo Town. Just to walk by Ogrania, or Cashel and Ben Croy, where the colours of the countryside abound, and to visit Aughmasheelin, where I rambled as a boy, then make my way back home to Drumshambo Town, where people come from far and near to seek a silent prayer, in a place where peace and quiet can be found. And they know the sisters in that little convent of poor Clare will pray for them down in Drumshambo Town. So if ever you're down Leitrim way, you should spend a little time in a hidden jewel of old Ireland's crown. Just a few miles out of Carrick, it's a spot that's just sublime, a little place they call Drumshambo Town. It's that little place they call Drumshambo Town.
I have to say, Stephen, it's just what a fantastic show so far. I love Charlie McGettigan. It's brilliant.
Delighted to have this man on the show, to have him here on the stage beside us, and I'm looking forward to this interview. He's a legend.
Yeah. I want to hear about Drumshambo Town, what that's all about.
Yeah, great song.
Yeah.
And the songs he's singing, like his own songs,
Fantastic.
I just want to get into the whole structure of the music and how he does it. And
We've lots to ask him.
Yeah. And he's here with us. Charlie, thanks very much. Thanks for joining us. I'm delighted, as we say, to have you on the show.
It's lovely to be here, Stephen, and of course Angel over here. We're old pals. Angel, we meet in all kinds of anywhere there's a party. We see
anywhere there's a party on.
Yeah. I haven't met you, Stephen, before, but I've watched you on YouTube and seen. I know exactly what you're like. You're very good. Very good indeed.
Oh, thanks very much. I'll pay you later for that. The backhander. No, delighted to have you here. Really am. Like, you know, I'm a fan. Like, you know, I follow you on Facebook, and I have been for years. Like, you know.
You'll know him the next time.
I will.
You'll know him the next time. You know, Charlie, I'd like to start off with obviously your career in the '60s, because I was really I didn't even know that you're actually part of even a rock band.
Yeah. Because
it's not something that I would identify you with as now. So tell us about that.
Well, you see, growing up I grew up in the 50s and 60s. I was a teenager in the 60s when the Beatles came along. And, you know, somebody said one time that the 50s and up to the mid-60s, to 62, 63, that the whole world was in black and white. Because if you look back on photographs, they're all in black and white from that period. But in the 60s, suddenly we were all in colour. And the Beatles were part of that colour. And as soon as I heard the Beatles in 1962 with their great song "Love Me Do," it changed not just my musical taste, but the way we dressed, the way we combed our hair. Because before that, you didn't go to the barbers for a haircut. You went for an oil change, you know, because everybody had their hair slicked back like Elvis, you know. But suddenly the Beatles came along, and everybody combed their hair forward, like, and had a nice fringe like you have, and also they changed fashion, clothes-wise. They wore these very collarless suits with and beetle boots with Cuban heels, and their whole attitude to life. They were sort of cheeky people, and they literally, the whole music scene changed, because before them it was Elvis, it was Cliff Richard, it was the Everly Brothers, and suddenly a whole new breed of English music suddenly came alive. So I forget what the question was now.
It's about you, that you were a rocker at the beginning. You started off having this Well, I didn't realise. I don't know whether you did, Stephen, but that you were.
Well, I was
kind of,
about
you were
14
rock
at the time.
bands.
Yeah.
Love
Well, I
it.
mean, to be cool, and you had to be into British rock bands like the Kinks and the Beatles and the Dave
And
Clark.
is that the sort of music you were playing? Were you playing covers with that band, like the Kinks and the Beatles and that? Yeah.
But suddenly it changed when money came into the. I was about
Equation.
I was about 15 or 16, and this fella from Bundoran, who was after Bundoran was a really kind of the Blackpool of the Northwest at the time, a really vibrant holiday resort. And this fella, he was after renting a pub for the summer, and he rang me up and he said, "Do you play music?" Well, some people call it music. I said, "Yeah." He said, I'm expecting a busload of people from Belfast, and I have no entertainment, and I'm willing to pay you to come out. I said, "You're going to pay us?" "Yes, I'll do it." And we arrived out, and I remember buying the Guinness Book of Irish Ballads on the way out, which is a book with the words of all the Black Velvet Band and the Wild Rover, all those kind of songs, just in case. And we went out and played our own rock and roll stuff, but I could see the people wanted to hear a few ballads as well, so we sang a few ballads. And we got a summer residency at 15 years of age, summer residency, 7 nights a week, 3 hours a night for the entire 3 months of the summer, June, July and August. And suddenly you had to know everything about everything, because in those days people had what was called the noble call. I would say, "Stephen, come up and sing a song," and you would sing a song. And then you had the noble call. You would say, "John, such and such for a song." And you go, no, you could have sung a Dubliner song. The next fella comes up could be a Frank Sinatra song. And the next fella could be a Beatles song. So we had to learn, 3 of us, we had to learn how to play, accompany every kind of music that was possible, and rock, including rock and roll, Irish ballads, folk songs, you name it, we had to sing it, learn how to play it. Because if they went wrong, it was always your fault. If the fella went off, and a lot of them would get up and sing in 3 different keys
blame
the one song.
Yeah, of course.
So
I've done that, yeah.
that's how I sort of became a jack of all trades then.
But you learn quick when you're thrown in the deep end like that. You have to, I suppose, and you get used to it.
It was fun for us, and I learned more that first summer about music, because you learned about all genres of music. And so, I mean, it was it was like going to university, it was just great. Then I moved to Dublin in 1968, and the very first night I was there, somebody brought me to Slattery's of Capel Street, which was a big folk, traditional blues, all kinds of music. But I didn't know this. I didn't know anything about acoustic music at all. I was an electric guitar player. Arrived in, and who was on stage that night? Only the great Frank Hart, with Donald Lunny accompanying him. Liam O'Flynn was playing there that night. Al O'Donnell, who was a great ballad singer, and I'd never heard this acoustic music before, up close and personal. The next day I rang my dad and I said, "Dad, I need money." And he said, "No, why?" I said, "I want to get an acoustic guitar." And I literally spent the next 6 years just watching people playing, just sitting at the bottom of the stage and watching with people like yourself, Stephen.
Were you playing electric guitar beforehand?
Yeah, I was all electric. I didn't know anything about acoustic guitar until I heard Al O'Donnell. Al O'Donnell was a unique guitar player. And the Dublin folk scene was thriving at that time. I mean, there was ballad sessions everywhere. I remember the Embankment in Tala, the Old Sheeling, and those kind of places. But also there was this underground folk scene, places like the Universal Folk Club and Slattery's of Capel Street and these different places. And I got intensely interested in traditional folk music. But I never actually played for the next 6 years because I didn't feel confident enough. Moved to Drumshanbo then in the County Leitrim, and the very first night I was in the place, Gretty, myself, my wife, we moved into this brand new house, and across the road, the woman across the road said, "Come over for tea." Turns out she was an accordion player, and that night a wonderful concert flute player called Packy Dignan arrived in, and soon the house was full of musicians, everybody. And I had gone to Drumshanbo to stay for 6 months. It was a stepping stone from there to another. And here I am 50 years later, still living in Drumshanbo because it's alive with music.
So how did you go from, say, starting off with, say, the rock and roll and the rock bands, and then you went on to the folk scene, and then you ended up like going to Eurovision? Like, it's such a diverse change of music.
Well, it really wasn't.
I know the song wasn't particularly, but even to enter the song into the Eurovision Song Contest, because it wasn't a typically Eurovision song.
Well, some people say that there isn't and I'm inclined to agree with them. There isn't a typical Eurovision song. I mean, the Rock and Roll Kids wasn't a typical Eurovision song. And I think people certainly, I remember Paul and myself, Paul Harrington, of course, was with Rock and Roll Kids, and Brendan Graham wrote the song. But I remember we were in an airport in Manchester, and this fella came, oh, you're the guys that won, you won the Eurovision, didn't you? I'm a huge Eurovision fan. And I said, I didn't get this year. I always go. And I said, how'd you find out? I said, I rang my sister and I said, who won the Eurovision? He said, oh, two old buggers with beards, you know. And so we just were what we were.
But how did you get to the point of the two of you and Paul Harrington actually getting together, or were you friends beforehand?
Never met Paul until that happened.
Wow.
Brendan Graham had written the song, and I'd written a lot of songs with Brendan. Brendan wrote, for example, You Raise Me Up, and all the great songs that people sing today. And we were... Huh?
Isle of Hope is another one.
Isle of Hope, great song,
Hope,
absolutely. Sean Keane has a particularly good version of it. But I remember Brendan, we were always in contact, and he sent me this song, Rock and Roll Kids, and he asked me to do a demo of it. And I was kind of into kind of country folk at the time, and I did a demo of it. It wasn't great, you know, it wasn't good at all. So about a year later, he sent me another demo that he got done by Paul Harrington. I'd heard Paul on the radio a few times, but it was just piano and vocal. And I said, Brendan, that is the best version. Whatever you do with that song, don't change it. You know, don't start putting strings on it and other instruments and stuff like that. But he put it into the Eurovision. It didn't qualify. He put it in another year for the Eurovision, and it turned out that I was on the judging panel that year. And Eurovision judging at that time was very strictly run. There was a firm of accountants watching everything you did when you were listening to the song, about 300 or 400 songs to be listened to. And when this one came up, I had to sort of say, really, I have to be honest here. I know the song, I know the singer, I know the songwriter, so I really will have to abstain. And the song didn't qualify again. But he put it in, just shows you the persistence for people. And it's sort of a lesson for people. If you do want to get a song into the Eurovision, be persistent. If you think it's a good enough song, keep going. And Brendan went for it, and it got through. And he rang me up and he told me, I'm after getting through to the Euro song, which is the preliminaries to represent Ireland. You know, it was a competition.
Were you judging that year when I went through?
No.
One, okay.
You see, I was worried that year that it was going to come out, maybe it qualified, and somebody said, I heard Charlie McGettigan singing that song before, you know, and you know that's not allowed, you know. And then he voted for it, and it gets through, you know. So I was justified in abstaining, but he got through anyway. And he said, "There's only one thing missing in it." I said, "Brendan, don't change it. Just keep it the way it is because it works." No, there's just one thing. I said, "What is it?" He said, "You." I said, "Me?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You." And I said, "What would I do? Just play along with Paul and sing bit of harmony on it and stuff like that." And I said, I don't really, you know, give me 24 hours. And I discussed it with my wife and the family. And I said, look, if this could be a big disturbance in our lives. It's going to, you know, if anything happened with this. But we agreed, we'll give it a go. And we did. And the rest is history. We won the National Song Contest.
How did you feel when you won it, actually?
Surprised.
Were you, like, stunned?
Absolutely, because we were the least Eurovision type song, if you know what I mean. We were, you know, certainly not what the Eurovision. Although when you think back on it,
where was it that year actually? Where was it?
Here.
It was here.
On the Point Depot.
Okay.
Yeah, which was great because you know it was like playing in Lansdowne Road. You were on the home turf, you know.
Especially in the home turf. Yeah.
And very little. We had very little to do. Just do what we normally did. Literally sat down. I met Paul, and on all the songs were being previewed on the Pat Kenny show at the time, which was on a Saturday night. Met Paul in the afternoon, had a quick run through. Went out to RTE, did a rehearsal, and just before our rehearsal, the Minute chamber choir were on. And when we finished they were sitting in the audience, and when we finished, they all stood up and applauded. And I said, there must be some bit of magic here. I loved chamber music, you know, and I loved chamber choir, and I thought they were just the ultimate to me. They were fantastic. And they loved it. And curiously enough, the Minister for Arts, Culture, what's her name now, she was in that choir at the time. And I met her just earlier this year, and she said, I have a connection to you. She said, I was in that choir the night you sang that song for the first time on television. And, you know, so we qualified, and then it got through to represent Ireland. And we were kind of a bit dazed, you know, but we were two old pros. I was in my 40s. And we ran with the flow with it, and it was. I remember the song before us featured these girls in hot pants dancing around.
So they didn't win now.
And they were before us, and I said, "Jeepers, we're going on after these ones. We're finished."
Because you never know what you're going to get in the
No.
And
I thought, we'll never win. So these guys are way ahead of us. And even in the green room, they had the green room down at the Three Arena. Point Depot at the time. And the green rooms were just separated, the dressing rooms were just separated by cloth, black cloth. And we could hear all the other singers warming up and doing, you know. And of course we were singing, oh God, you know. I remember somebody asked, how do you do your warm-ups? You know, warm-ups, how do you do it? And we go, and away we went, you know. So we were, like, we had a laugh the whole way through it. You know, we just had great fun. And I think that's possibly what won it for us, because we didn't really think of winning. We had won by representing the country. I mean, I was never going to represent Ireland playing boxing or playing football or anything like that. So that was a win to me, just to be there.
100%.
That's just a great story, I have to say.
Yeah.
Could I just ask you about your own songwriting as well? Like, you know, I know Brendan Graham wrote that one, fantastic songwriter. Like, you know, were you into songwriting before that?
Yes, and I'd been in the National Song Contest a couple of times.
Right.
Yeah, before that, and got third on each occasion. And Johnny Logan beat us on one occasion with Hold Me Now, and we got third that year. And we had another song called The Bebop Delight in another year. See, Eurovision was, if you're a songwriter, there were very few outlets to hear new songs. You know, so you could, you know, there were song contests. There were the Castlebar Song Contest, the Cavan Song Contest, but the ultimate song contest was the National Song Contest. Yeah. And you got on television, and, you know, people got to see you. So I always had that in my mind. Somebody told me that way back in 1964 that I told somebody that I'm going to win that song contest someday, you know. And I hadn't even written a song at that stage, but I believe him. Maybe I did sort of foresee it, but anyway. So I began writing songs when I moved to Drumshanbo, and I began to observe people around me. And Packy Dignan, that flute player, he had a great story to him, because Packy used to keep his flute in flutes in three pieces, you know, and he used to keep it in his inside pocket. And there was this American guy that owned a pub in Drumshanbo, you know, and he was called Big Pat was called. He was known as the Jerk, because he had come back from America, and anybody he met, he would call him a jerk, you know. So we called him the Jerk. But Packy would sneak in past him, you know, and he wouldn't be playing for 2 minutes, but somebody would plunk a pint up in front of him. And he walked back in and he said, "Hey there, Dignan," and he said, get out of my pub with that three-piece wallet of yours." The three-piece wallet was the flute. So I wrote a song called The Three-Piece Wallet, which I thought was a great. And I would say to songwriters, the big thing to be a songwriter is to watch other people. Brendan Graham will always tell you that the reason he wrote Rock and Roll Kids, he was at a Fats Domino concert in the National Stadium. And all these people arrived in with there were people coming from their work, still in their pinstripe suits, their shirts and ties. By the end of the night, Fats Domino had them dancing in the aisles. Everybody was going bonkers. And Brendan wrote down on the back of a cigarette box, "They're like rock and roll kids," he said, "these guys." You know,
very good.
You know, and that's where the song came. So it's just be observant if you want to be a songwriter. And Brendan is very observant. You talked of Isle of Hope, Isle of Dreams, which is about the emigration of the Irish to New York and what they find when they get there. You Raised Me Up, again, came up totally by accident. You know, it's a very spiritual song. And I knew immediately I heard it, this is going to be huge.
I think I heard Josh Groban singing it the first time.
Yeah, he was the first version.
Oh, was he the first version?
He was the first version.
Because then later I actually heard Westlife and I was like, oh, I thought that was a Josh Groban
Brian
song.
Kennedy did a version of it.
Okay.
Actually, Brian, I think, recorded the very first version of it. But Josh Groban recorded the recorded version of it. Okay. So I always believe everybody has a song in them, just in exactly the same way as I wrote a book during lockdown.
I was just about to say, we're getting
Could I just ask a question?
Yeah.
I was just wanted to say, because I know you're going to get on to that. I just want to say, you're also doing now the Saturday Connection on the Shannon Side Northern Sound Radio.
Yeah.
So just wanted to give it a mention before we mention
I drifted into that too. I mean, it was just somebody was sick one day.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd never presented a radio show in my life. And I said, would you come in and replace Joe Finnegan? He can't be here. I went in and I put the headphones on and I started to talk. And I instantly fell in love with the sound of my own voice, you know. And I said, I want to do more of this. So 15 years later, I'm still doing it.
15 years, well.
I love it.
There you go.
I love it, yeah.
Can you tell us about the book? Because we want to talk to you a little bit about the book, and we are running out of time. I'll just say, actually, we might even bring up the book on the screen there for people to see, if that's okay. Yeah, there we go.
The book is called Forever a Rock and Roll Kid. And what it is, it's a personal social history. I grew up in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. The book starts in the 1950s when I was born and finishes on the year we won the Eurovision in 1994. But when you sit down to write a book, it's remarkable the amount of stuff that you remember. You know, I couldn't believe the characters that I had forgotten about, people that I'd known. When I was 2 years of age, I was living in Dublin, and I could remember people. There was a Jewish family lived beside us, the Greens, and I remember Effra Road and Rotten Mines. I remember how big it was. But when I went to look at it a few years ago, it was tiny. But I thought it was huge, you know. So, and then all these characters are tumbling into your psyche, and you start writing and writing and writing. And you know, even now, I still think of people I left out. For example, there was one fella called Fingers was his name, and he was a great fella for passing smart remarks. And this woman came up to him one day. She said, "I'm very worried about John. I think he might be gay." And Fingers said, "That's nothing, missus. My daughter's going out with a guard." You know,
okay. So there's some humour in the book then.
I think it's one I left out. You know, so
okay.
he'll have to fit
you
in.
put him in today.
And he'll be going in the next one. Yeah, he's
there you go.
He's remembered forever.
Remembered forever.
Well, congratulations,
exactly.
writing a book. You know, that's for sure.
You can get it on the website, which is www.battlebridgepress.com.
Brilliant for people out there. Yeah. You're going to do another couple of songs for us, and you're also going to have Colm Gavin joining you. And I believe you wrote a song with Colm, or was it recent?
I've written many songs.
Oh, you've
with
written
Colm.
a few, okay.
And I asked him today, before we did this chat, I said, how do we get involved? And he said, you saw me on Facebook and you sent me a message to say, would you like to write songs with me? And we got together. He was about 27.
You sent him or he sent you?
I sent to him.
Oh, really? Okay,
you know,
yeah.
I don't know if, I must have heard some of his songs on YouTube or something. And I said, God, I'd like to write. And Colm is about 50 years between our ages, you know.
Yeah.
And we hit it off instantly. We've written about 50 songs at this stage. Wow. But this song particularly appealed to Colm. It's a song of winter time, and what it's like living in the winter, and a song about relationships that are very fragile, that could fall apart at Christmas, and what kind of a Christmas it was going to be if they did fall apart. So it's called Dreaming Again. So we'll be doing that as part of the next couple of songs.
Super.
Looking forward to it.
Charlie, thank you very much for doing the interview, coming on the show, the whole lot, and
it's been fantastic.
It's great.
We're delighted.
It's great to see you, Angel,
Great to see
again,
you too.
and it's great to see you, Stephen, for the first time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
I hope we'll get to meet you again and maybe have you on again sometime in the future. But thanks very much. If you want to take the stage then, and we get the next few songs.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
What an interview.
Yeah, no, brilliant.
I
could talk to, I think that interview could have gone on forever. I
have
so many more questions.
So I haven't even touched them. Look.
Yeah, just great just listening to the stories. And I would have liked to know more stories about the book actually as well, especially because it sounds like there's a lot of humour in the book. And even as myself, as a person who doesn't even read too many books, it sounds interesting. It's like something I might buy.
What we're going to have to do is we're going to have him back.
Yeah, I think so.
On the show again.
Yeah, after we read the book.
Exactly, after we read the book. Exactly.
Forever a rock and roll kid. Going to hand you back over to Charlie now. I think they're ready. Yes, or he's ready. And then we'll have Colm on with him on the second and third song. So here we go.
And in Drumshanbo, we have a great community. And about, God, it could be 45 years ago now, a bunch of us, I was telling you that there's lots of great musicians around the place, only they don't call them musicians in Drumshanbo, they call them musicianers, like carpenters or painters, so they're known as musicianers. Well, a bunch of us all got together to raise money to build a community centre in the town. So we got the bright idea, we'd all get on a bus and put on a show in England for them. And the very first night we were on tour, we landed in a place called St. Brendan's Irish Centre in Manchester on a wet November night. I'll never forget it, it was really dismal. And we were sitting on the bus waiting to get into the venue. And there was a fella standing over on the corner there. And he was a typical sort of an emigrant. And this was in the 1980s when there were lots of immigrants. And he came over to talk to us. And he had a suitcase with a belt around it to keep it closed. And trousers were at half-mast. He was soaking wet. And he came over to the bus and he says, I'm waiting to meet Father John Ahern. And he said, because he might be able to find some of my relations. So eventually Father John arrived, and this is what happened. It's a song called A Bed for the Night. He was standing on the corner as the sun was going down. He was looking for a contact. He had just arrived in town with his suitcase full of them his clothes outworn and tight, and he was looking for a bed for the night. And he had a list of numbers that had slipped out of his head. An uncle living somewhere out in Manchester, he said. And he had come out of a country where the tunnels had no lights, and he was looking for a bed for the night. Just a bed for the night, somewhere warm to the morning light, and he was looking for a bed for the night. And standing in the doorway was a man called Father John. He said, come in from the cold and sit you down there, my good man. And the small talk was of football, and the tea tasted so right, and he was looking for a bed for the night. Just a bed for the night, somewhere warm to the morning light, and he was looking for a bed for the night. There was something in this situation made me realize that there is always someone with the kindness in their eyes. So if Father John should hear me, and who knows, he just might hear me say, thank you for the bed for the night. Just a bed for the night, somewhere warm to the morning light, and he was looking for a bed for the night. Just a bed for the night, somewhere warm to the morning light, and he was looking for a bed for the night. Yeah, that was a lovely occasion, and I often say to people who want to write songs, and there are always situations, and that was the true stories are often the best, you know. But I was talking earlier on about Facebook, and the people I've discovered there. I discovered Rose Milligan there, and lots of other people who write poems and songs, and I've made great relationships with them, and written songs with people from all over the world. That's the great thing about the internet. And one of the people I met was a young man who I'm going to introduce you to now. He's a fella that I've come to know really, really well, mostly on the phone, by the way, and mostly online. But we've written up on 50 songs together since I met him a few years ago. So would you welcome my good friend, Colin Gavin. Well, Colin.
Well, great to be here with you.
Yeah, that was a very purposeful walk you did up to the stage, full of confidence.
More trying not to trip.
Young people have more confidence than those old bucks, you know. But we met. You reminded me earlier on that was it on Facebook or where was it?
It was, yeah. When I brought out my first album, A Voice for the Urban Darlings, you were kind enough to play one track in particular called "You've Got Your Daddy's Eyes," and you were very flattering about that one too. Yeah. So, and that was huge for me. So then to get to work with you was just the icing on the cake.
Do you have that observational thing as well when you write songs? Is it something, are you always on the lookout like me for a line or just a couple of words that people put together to write songs?
I think from an inspirational perspective, you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier, and you gave some fantastic examples where something just leaps out at you and you feel compelled to document it with a melody and lyrics.
Now, we wrote lots, as I say, up to 50 songs, and probably more. We've written songs together, but this one particularly appealed to you because it's a song of kind of the time of year that we're in. We're in November, and it's getting dark evenings, and it's cold, and it's miserable. And you got the idea, so tell me a little bit, where it came from.
Well, somebody who both you and I have a shared affection for is Tony Rice.
Yes.
There was a great album in 1988 called Native American. It was on Rounder Records. And there was a song called Shadows. And I remember when we started into this one initially, I'd given you kind of a germ of an idea. And what you sent me back felt like it could have been an outtake from a Tony Rice record. And straight away, of all the songs that we had written, there was a magic to this one. When it feels like you didn't write it, I think there's always something, and I don't mean you or I specifically, but anybody that just came out of the ether, it was always there. Yeah. And that's all great songs. And
we have it recorded now. We have it out as a single. It'll be coming out later on this month. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. Paul Harrington and myself were described as two old books one time. Here's an old book and a young fella. And the song is called Dreaming Again. It's winter and the trees are all bare on my street, and the snow comes a-tumbling down. I can half make out faces of people I meet as they pass without making a sound. And the radio's playing those wintry old songs, and I wonder, do you hear them too? And I can imagine you singing along those love songs that I sing to you. Because I'm dreaming again, dreaming of words that we said now and then, wondering if you even remember them. Oh, I know I'm dreaming again. I know I'm dreaming again.
Christmas and you will be home, but will we be together again? Those faraway places way over the phone, they have stolen you from how we've been. And the radio's playing those wintry old songs, and I wonder, do you hear them too? And I just imagine you singing along those love songs that I sing to you. Because I'm dreaming again, dreaming of words that we said now and then, wondering if you even remember them. Oh, I know I'm dreaming again. I know I'm dreaming again. Wonder if you're dreaming too. Wonder if these dreams of mine mean the same to you. Because I'm dreaming again, dreaming of words that we said now and then, wondering if you even remember them. Oh, I know I'm dreaming again. Yes, I'm dreaming again. Bottle green eyes and the sound of the rain, songs that we sung and we played now and then. Oh, I know I'm dreaming again. I know I'm dreaming again. Dreaming again. I know I'm dreaming again. I know I'm dreaming again. I know I'm dreaming again.
You know, we actually almost finished that at the same time.
Yeah, I know.
But I love the song.
Yeah, me too.
Hopefully, it's the one of many we'll release as singles in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great when you sort of gel with a songwriter. I'm going to sing you a song now. I sort of sing this song. I call it The Pension, because it's been recorded by so many people that I've forgotten how many people have recorded. But it's a song for parents. People who are, and you know when your child or your teenager gets to the stage where they're going to leave the nest, and you wish everything for them. You hope they find all good things. But even if they don't, this song more or less says that you should come home. We're always here for you. That's to your own houses now, not to my house. But and it's a song called Feet of a Dancer. And as I say, it's been recorded by many people. I suppose the main person would have been Maura O'Connell, who made a great job of it. And I'm going to close with this one, and I hope you like it. It's called Feet of a Dancer. I hope you find the feet of a dancer. I hope you can sing in the rain. I hope you find all the easy answers to your pain. It won't be easy. What can I say? 'Cause there will be trouble on the way, and around every corner, terror and tears. Just always remember that we're here. I hope you find the feet of a dancer. I hope you can sing in the rain. I hope you find all the easy answers to your pain. And I hope you find love and affection. I hope you find someone who'll care. I hope you find all the right directions everywhere. Everywhere. A shoulder to cry on. Whenever you're low, you can rely on us, you know. 'Cause there's nothing too crazy, and there's nothing too dear. Just always remember that we're here. I hope you find the feet of a dancer. I hope you can sing in the rain. I hope you find all the easy answers to your pain. And I hope you find love and affection. I hope you find someone who'll care. I hope you find all the right directions everywhere. Everywhere. And even when the rain comes a-falling down, and oh, it's a-falling down on you, I hope you find the feet of a dancer. I hope you can sing in the rain. I hope you find all the easy answers to your pain. And I hope you find love and affection. I hope you find someone who'll care. I hope you find all the right directions everywhere. 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 Always remember that we're here. Feet of a dancer. The feet of a dancer.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great show with us here this evening. What a fantastic evening we have had, Stephen.
Absolutely. Great to hear Charlie on his own, doing his own songs, and also to have him as a duo. I love the fact that he's saying like there's such an age gap between the two of them, but age doesn't matter when it comes to music, like, you know. Brilliant duo. Like, they've written over 50 songs together, like, you know. We'd like to thank Colin for coming on the show as well, like, you know.
Yeah, thank you,
Delighted
Colin.
to have him on piano and playing. Brilliant player, like, you know.
What a fantastic night. We look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.